let me check in on The Sorrows of Satan by Marie Corelli, or as she goes by here. I am in the midst of chapter 6, about halfway through chapter 6. And I'm very much struck by the fact that Oscar Wilde was a fan of Marie Corelli because not only does this story kind of echo kind of a Dorian Gray kind of corrupting a youth, though in this case it's corrupting a kind of hangdog, failed writer, failed maybe not because of his lack of brilliance, but because he's actually he wants to write literature, and literature isn't what's selling nowadays. It should be a torrid thing where a modest maid you know denied says that the sanctity of marriage will degrade her, and goes off on kind of debauchery and stuff like that. Kind of lurid, sexy tales is what the public wants, and so he's failing until. And it's like he's starving. He is the starving artist until he gets a series of letters. One of which turns out to be getting $5 million from some old relative he didn't even really have much memory of. Another one is a friend of his, saying like, "Oh, I came into some money. Here's £50 to kind of tide you over. I know you're in trouble. You'd written to me," and also him saying like, "Oh, here I'm gonna. There's this old fellow who's a philanthropist who really loves to kind of help people like you. I'm giving him a letter of introduction. He can help you. He helped me." And this guy shows up, and he's not old, and he's Romanes, Prince Romanes, and he's not old. He's actually quite dashing, maybe the same age as our as our main character, whose name is completely escaping me at the moment. Our main character, who Wesley? No, okay. I'm not going to stress too much about that, but and what happens is definitely kind of feels like a seduction, um, where he's like, he kind of that he doesn't really want to accept him because he's in rags, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to accept him now. I just got 5 million," but ends up doing it through. He sits in the dark, and the landlady kind of lets the guy in, and then they lights the thing, and lights up, and there they are together. And what follows is very much a seduction, where it's like, I'm a bad boy, and there's very much a thing of like, oh, you follow the tastes of the young ladies, the young mademoiselles today. You like a bad boy. It's very much kind of quoted in a lot of queer coding, like that there's a sexual attraction that our hero or protagonist has towards this guy. Um, yeah, uh, and he's saying like, I'm bad news, I'm bad news. And I mean, in this chapter he starts talking about the Satan, and that what happened with the fall of Satan in this particular telling is that he said like, I'm gonna make, like, Satan's gonna say like, I hate this mankind that you're trying to fashion in our likeness. They're a weak worm. There's no way they're gonna amount to anything, and I'm gonna make my thing to destroy them all. And God says, okay, you're cast down, you're cast out, doomed to fulfill your word to try and cast them all out. However, for everyone that actually makes it to heaven, you'll get closer to heaven. But everyone that you damn to hell, that you tempt into destruction, I will condemn you further away from my glorious eternal process. Because so it's a real catch-22 situation for the devil, who it's like, well, he, our hero says like, well, why don't you just um not why doesn't he not tempt him? He's like, oh, well, you forget that he swore before the eternal, and that kind of swear, unlike men who make swears to God all the time and break them, can't be broken. And so he is fixed there. um yeah, so there's that. Yeah, and now our hero's main thing now is I'm going to get my book published. And he says like, well, you know, your book got rejected even though people liked it because it just wouldn't sell. And he actually name checks a bunch of people that it should have gotten. One of whom is Huntsman, which I know is very much an author that Oscar Wilde based the picture of Dorian Gray on. Um, where is it? Should be therefore, if your book were a judicious mixture of Zola, Huntsman, and Baudelaire, all I mean Huntsman and Baudelaire definitely that's fin de siècle kind of getting into the kind of the grottiness of thing. Um, Particularly on the unsavory and unquestionable projects. And though, so if you're a mixture of those things, or had for its heroine a modest maid who considered honorable marriage a degradation, it would be quite sure of success in these days of new Sodom and Gomorrah. There's definitely this feel of kind of this is these like this the whole thing that's getting pushed in this book is like we're in a fallen time, that morals have gone to hell, that society is breaking down, that no one's a Christian anymore, that it's all about money, money, money. It's materialism, that kind of a thing. Greed, for another way of putting it, greed is good. So it's the 1980s or maybe now. So we get that. We get this image of this beetle moth that he has, that he says like, oh, this came from from the bosom of a mummy, of a 4,000-year-old Egyptian princess mummy who had been living there and consuming the flesh of the mummy. So it's like, this, like, nothing can be destroyed, and like this thing maybe holds the spirit of that Egyptian princess. Like it's got those vivid eyes and kind of kind, like there's a soul trapped in there. It's like it's another kind of damnation to hell, this little creature now kept by Romanes. And it's like, I know Romanes' name because I keep on yeah. So that is my first thoughts on the Srrws of Satan. It definitely goes on. It's a 500 page book. In this, here, let me take a look at it. It is I'm on page 78 of 558, and we're definitely getting all these kind of set speeches and stuff like this. It's like it does go on. It is slightly baggy, but it's also definitely has kind of there's definitely a queer coding going on between the devil, obviously the devil, and our protagonist being tempted by the devil. And these things of like, oh, how horrible society is, and name checking Huntsman and Baudelaire. That's yeah, definitely, and Zola. It's the bad boys in there. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying the Srrws of Satan so far. Actually, it's definitely it's the trashy version of Oscar Wilde, I guess, maybe, but it's fun trash. So gotta like that. More videos later.